Hey guys, how's it going? It's been about a month since I released the video, probably the best video about the whole entire investigation with all of the experiments. It's been about a month. If you haven't watched it, guys, I'll put a card up here. It's 11 hours long. I have split it up into 3 smaller series, so part 1, part 2, and part 3. It might be easier to watch it that way. I will probably end up splitting it up into individual pieces as well to make it even easier to watch. I do feel like it's important to watch it from beginning to finish if you are serious about this whole entire situation. But if you want to watch it in 3 smaller pieces or each individual pieces, there's like 28 different sections. I'll put that out throughout the year as well. But today, guys, this video is going to be about asking questions, the types of conspiracy theories, and truth. Do we actually care about truth, or are we just trying to prove what it's in our minds, right or wrong? And I have some interesting aspects on this, guys. I have done some experiments in the past, and what people think and how they think is very interesting to me, and that was part of my whole entire strategy going through with my experiment video, is to address it in such a way where people could possibly look through that without having bias and just see straight up what the truth is. All right, guys, I covered this in my big video. I do have a degree in criminal justice, as well as I did study psychology quite a bit before I switched to criminal justice. I'm not claiming to be a super huge expert on either, but I might have more knowledge than some people that don't have a degree in either of these fields, right? Especially criminal justice. But I just wanted to cover today a couple things that we didn't really cover in the big video. And I wanted to, but I wasn't really sure if it was right, the right time. And I was kind of just waiting for things to filter out a little bit before I made this kind of a video. Because one of the biggest things I get in the comments, or when I show people the video, or other people just about other people's videos, is we're just asking questions. I always get well, what's wrong with asking questions? Charlie Kirk said, always ask questions. Well, here's the thing about asking questions. It isn't about asking questions, it's about asking the right questions. And also, asking questions does not mean to reject everything, okay? I see so many people out there saying, well, what's wrong with asking questions? All we're doing is asking questions. Or Charlie said to ask questions. And there's a huge difference between asking questions and doing this. Well, the government said it's this, 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 and this. Therefore, it can't be any of those. That's not asking questions. Okay, that's just blatantly rejecting something out of pure skepticism without any reason or evidence to. Okay, asking questions means that you're in a search for the truth. And if you're in search for the truth, what that rather means is the government said this, 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 this. Asking questions doesn't mean saying, well, the government lied about JFK, therefore all 5 of these things are automatically wrong. Questioning things means you say, well, the government said this. Is this correct, or is it a lie? And then you investigate that and you find out, okay, that's true or it's false. And you find out through asking questions if that's a lie or not. And what I see people doing all over the internet is, okay, guys, you shouldn't believe the government, okay? But you also shouldn't believe all of the theories out there that are out there just because it's not what the government said, okay? That's just as dumb. That's just as pathetic, okay? And what I see out there is if someone, let's just, for example, I asked the question, could it be a 30-06? Okay? And what I found is it very well could be a 30-06. There's hundreds and hundreds of autopsy reports, hundreds of studies, hundreds of experiments, hundreds showing that 30-06 rounds and even more powerful rounds have hit tissues of humans and then stayed in the body. Okay? Whether that's the neck or other places, it's happened all over the body. Even here, and there's X-rays showing a 30 caliber round in the brain, and that's much smaller and much skinnier than the neck vertebrae or the whole entire neck. Okay. Anyways, I don't show those on here because I don't know what YouTube's policies are on here, but asking the question is that possible? And then you go out there and you do independent studies, regardless of this side or this side, and you go find the information and then you come up with an explanation of what you think yourself. Okay? But what I see happening is people are questioning these things. They have asked the questions and they've come to the conclusion that some of them, or even all of them, or most of them are true. and then you just get called a fed slop that isn't questioning things. Because to some people, questioning things means that you just reject them outright and you don't even look into it. If that makes sense, okay? And that's where it comes to, are we really looking for the truth or are we not looking for the truth, okay? And this is an interesting experiment I did. I have another channel with way more subscribers than I have here. I wanted to do this on a channel where it was smaller and didn't have any subscribers, just kind of grow it from scratch so that I didn't come across as some kind of crazy grifter. Because, you know, I could have put this on my bigger channel and got way more views a lot faster. And maybe it would have been more useful to the public. I don't know. But I don't want to be one of those people that's just grifting off of this. That's not my purpose. My purpose is to actually find the truth and to hopefully convince some people of what is the truth. And maybe I could be wrong, right? But in this little channel, I review a lot of paranormal activities, Bigfoot, Sasquatch, aliens, ghosts, just paranormal, anything paranormal, right? From this end, as well as studying psychology, there was actually an article or two that came out. I can't remember if it was Yale or if it was Harvard that came out a few years ago, and it talked about most people in their brain. It isn't necessarily a fault of people. It's just we're naturally wired to confirm what we already believe. So when we're looking for the truth, it's not necessarily that we're looking for the truth. We're looking for the truth that confirms what we already think is true. And this experiment I did on my channel really proved this, okay? So what I did is I was actually up here, a little bit further down the same road up here, actually. I was out one day just taking some photos. I'm also a photographer. And I turn around and there's this huge moose. Okay, this thing was massive, but it was laying down. And you know what? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put that here in just a little bit in a section, but let me explain kind of what happened. It's laying down and its shoulders are kind of in a humped up way. It's hard to explain, but I'm going to show you. And it looks like it's a Bigfoot kind of hunched over the grass, kind of just, you know, in like a creek or something. I could tell it was a moose because I had seen the antlers, but when it put its head down and then this big hump came up from its back, and it looked like a Bigfoot head. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to film this and I'm not going to hoax people. I'm not going to just put it up and say, hey, it's a Bigfoot. I did this on purpose because the next day I planned on putting out another video. And what I did is I put out this video and it says, I've been looking for Bigfoot for years and I finally found it. Here's Bigfoot, guys. And I'm like 20 feet away from this thing and I'm talking about how it's Bigfoot and it's crazy and I finally proven that Bigfoot's true. And literally, guys, if you're going to see the video. It looks like a Bigfoot just hunched over, this huge, massive Bigfoot just hunched over, drinking out of the water or something, okay? All right, guys, so this is the video that I'm going to show you. And guys, this is the edited and blurry version. I added some blur, added a couple little effects, and this is the video I was telling you about a second ago. Okay, so you can see that the creature's behind this tree here. See how it's a little bit blurry? I blur it out a little bit, and then I kind of go to unblur it, and it's sharp. I blur it out for a reason, because if I don't blur it, you actually see the antlers, right? But you can clearly see it looks like a Bigfoot. You can see it looks like a Bigfoot like standing up right there, at least even right here. Like, it's absolutely insane. I'm giving a commentary on the other video, but this is a different video, right? And, I show it, and I only show what I want you to see, right? Just like a hoaxer would, right? Okay, guys, I actually forgot about it, because at the end of that video, I actually put this and said, stay tuned. Tomorrow, we're going to have a little chat about this, And so you're already prepped to know that I'm not faking this as a hoax. You already know that I'm doing something with this video, okay? Which makes it even funnier. Well, then I put the actual video out, and I put the full video out. And in this video, guess what, guys? You can clearly see that it has antlers, and that it's on 4 legs, and it's not just a Bigfoot standing behind a tree. Okay, we're not going to show too much more of this, but guys, you can literally see that's a moose, right? I hope you can agree that you can see that's a moose. And people are still, because they want to prove that their own proof is true, what they believe, they're still not believing this is a moose. They're still saying this is a Bigfoot. This is another one where people were like, oh my gosh, it's a real Yeti. Really? Guys, people thought this was real. Like, you can literally see the folds in the costume. Like, you can literally see that it's a Yeti suit. It's probably like $25 on Amazon or something. Like, you can literally see the guy's eyes if you look closely and see that this part of the face does not match the rest of the suit. And people in the comments for this one are still like, oh my gosh, it's a real Yeti. Like, really, guys, in the middle of the city. Like, he's literally walking around the city, like through people's neighborhood. Like, and people are still, because their brain is so wired to look for what they think is true, they're saying that this is a real Yeti. These are just really good examples of people's brains just I don't know, just totally looking for what proves what they think is correct. Okay, ridiculous. As soon as it starts to move, I pause the video and I talk about it a little bit longer, and then I end it. Okay. Okay. This is where it gets really interesting. In the comment section down below, people went crazy. Oh my gosh, you found Bigfoot. Bigfoot's finally real. This is better than Patterson Gimlin. Blah, 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 blah. There's just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of comments congratulating me and going crazy about me finally proving Bigfoot is real. Okay. Little did they know that it was, it was just me doing an experiment on them, right? Maybe it was me, maybe it wasn't, I don't know, okay? The next day, or maybe 2 or 3 days later, I can't remember, but this is like 8 years ago, I put up the full video. And in the full video, it shows a big, huge moose going down, putting its head in the water for a few seconds, and then it pops its head back out, and then it's looking around, and you can clearly see it has a huge moose rack, and then you can clearly see that it's a moose. And I explained, don't believe everything you see on the internet. And then I just, I kind of do a little commentary about how it's not wise to believe everything you see on the internet and that people could be purposely trying to trick you and all this stuff. And then I left it at that. Okay. In the comments, this is where it gets great. In the comment section, of course, I had some people say, oh my gosh, you hoaxed us. You're such a loser. I'm unsubscribing, whatever. Okay. I explained in the second video, I wasn't purposely trying to hoax them. I was purposely doing this on purpose to make the second video. Okay. My purpose wasn't to put this out there and then have everyone think I actually saw Bigfoot. My purpose was to do this experiment. So I wasn't hoaxing people. Anyone who sees that video can clearly see the next video is clearly debunking that one, right? Okay, the second group of people were just commenting like, I'm so glad you put this out there. I'm so glad that you actually went out there and that, there's people out there that are actually trying to show what is true, what is not true, and that are actually dedicated to the truth rather than just all the hype. Because it's true, guys. If you go into the category of YouTubes where you see where people are doing the same thing I'm doing, where I'm trying to find Bigfoot footage and UFO footage and different things that's true or false and trying to review them, you're going to see that most people will say every single thing is a true Bigfoot video. Okay? Because I'm not joking, there's a video of a Bigfoot walking through New York City. And there's people who are like, oh my gosh, it's real, there's a Bigfoot in New York City. I'm like, what? I could get way more subscribers, way more views by going to be one of those people, but I'm actually dedicated to the truth, okay? And that was my whole purpose of making this whole entire video about the moose and then trying to trick people and then showing people, hey, look, guys, it was just a moose. What if I wasn't honest? What if I was just a regular person out here that's trying to hoax you? I could have filmed that thing and then never said anything, and that thing would have got millions of views, and I would have been known as the person who solved Bigfoot forever, okay? Right? Okay, the third type of commenter, which is just absolutely mind-blowing to me, okay? And I would say there was probably about like 20% were super angry that I had hoaxed it and said that they were unsubscribing. And then there was about 40%-ish that were like, we're so glad that you were honest about this. And I'm glad that's the type of my subscriber that's almost the majority, right, is the ones that were glad that I was being honest, right? Okay, but we have 60% of those people that were either angry or grateful. Okay, there was about, I would say 30 to 40%-ish of the comments. Okay, the remaining 40% were people saying, "No, that is a Bigfoot." 40% were still saying, "No, even though you showed us it was a moose, we still think it was a Bigfoot." And my mind is just going, are people really this ridiculous? Like, I'm the one that filmed the video. I'm not reviewing someone else's video. Okay, that might be a little bit different because they might think, oh, I clipped that other part in and I faked it, to put the moose head on there or something. This is way before AI or anything like that, so I don't know how I would have done that, but they could have claimed that, I guess, if I was reviewing someone else's footage and they said that I had somehow switched to some other footage and manipulated it or something. But this is me with my own camera filming both. It's the same video, I just cut it early and cut it in the beginning, and then I showed the whole video in the next video. So I'm like, people are still saying that I'm lying and that it's still a Bigfoot. That is how much these people were so excited and so happy that I had finally proven a clear video of Bigfoot. Not pixelated, not blurry, not shaky, not people running away. An actual video of Bigfoot. Right? Because everything else you see of Bigfoot is not like this. And this was, 4K, zoomed in, Bigfoot. And people were so excited and so like overwhelmed that I had filmed Bigfoot, that even when I come out and I say this is actually just a moose and I show the full footage, 30 to 40% of these people are still so in their mind that it's Bigfoot that they can't believe it. That they're still saying it's Bigfoot even though I'm telling them it's a moose. Okay? What is my point with this whole thing? Okay? My whole point with this whole thing is that we all do this with different things that we think or that we believe. There's clear evidence, and we're still the people that are saying, okay, this is a moose, okay? And the whole point is, I'm not attacking I'm not attacking any one group or anything, because we all do this. I feel like we all do this. A study said that we pretty much all do this. We need to be very careful to try not to do this. We need to look to try to find out what is the actual truth and not what proves what we think is true, okay? A good example of this is this really clickbaity article that just came out, and I don't remember the exact title. I'll put it up here somewhere, but it says something like bullet analysis finds that the bullet found in Charlie was not a 30-06. And that's not what the article says at all. The article even goes on to explain, the article itself even goes on to explain that it's just inconclusive because it's shrapnelled and shredded and it's not conclusively identifiable, which would be expected. If you look at all the studies I've shown in my video, that's what happens. It hits, it deflects, it shatters, and that's what you would expect, actually. So the article is actually proving the government narrative true, but the title and the clickbait title and everything is trying to mislead you into saying, like, you know, it'd be different if the article said the bullet found in Charlie was a 308, not a 30-06, or it was a 40, not a 30-06. They found a 22 caliber round. That's not what it's saying. It's saying that it's shrapnel and that it's shrapnelled, like shredded or whatever, fragmented, and that it is unidentifiable. It's not saying that it's not a 30-06, it's just saying that it's not identifiable. But I feel like this is the same thing as the moose thing. Like, people are looking at that and they're like, oh my gosh, this proves what I think is true. And they're reading into it and using whatever it says, the title mostly, and they're not going to watch the whole rest of the article, right? They're just going to read the title, headline, and they're not going to read the whole rest of the thing that explains that it's not, they didn't find a 22 round, they didn't find a 40, they didn't find a 9. It's just that it fragmented and it's not identifiable. They're not going to even read the rest because with the title, the headline says exactly what they think is true, and now all of a sudden it's just another link in the chain, okay? All right, guys, here's the article. Bullet used to Charlie Kirk did not match rifle allegedly used by suspect. Tyler Robinson, new court filing claims. Okay. Guys, one thing I think is really, really, really funny and really, really almost also proves the narrative that we're told to be true is, okay, guys, the people who don't believe the narrative on some of these things, you literally have to believe that the government is flat out lying about every single thing. And to believe that, you have to believe that the government has absolute control over the information that they're giving you and getting, and that they can manipulate the whole entire situation, right? So, for example, you know, if we're told that Tyler Robinson's parents turned him in, we're told that is a complete lie, that's just made up and that's fake. Or that there's footage of him on the roof that's clear, identifiable footage. And guys, his own friends knew that it was him and recognized him. His parents, his grandpa, like all these people recognized him from the security footage, even though it was a little bit blurry. They're going to have the sharp versions of these footage. You're going to have to believe that that's all made up and that's all fake too. Okay? Right? And I think there's two funny things about this whole entire situation. The information from this article is gotten from the ATF. And so suddenly, all of a sudden, everything the government is telling us is wrong. Everything, they're lying about everything. They have the power to make everything up. They have the power to fake everything. They're lying about every single thing. But you're going to believe the ATF all of a sudden just from one article? This is another proof of, you know, only listening to something that proves what you think is true, even though the rest of the article goes on to say that, you know, it was fragmented and that's why it wasn't recognizable, which proves the narrative. But the other thing that's funny is that supposedly you think that the FBI and all the government just have supreme power to lie about every single thing and to make up everything and to totally just to make up a whole narrative and manufacture everything. Yet the ATF and the FBI are going to come out and say that the bullet was fragmented. Why not just say, yep, it was an intact 30-06, completely intact, just to like shut up all the conspiracy theorists? You still wouldn't believe it. You'd still be like, oh, they made that up. But why tell the truth that it was fragmented when they could just make it up and totally manufacture everything? Right? I mean, why even say it was a 30-06 to begin with? Why not just say that it was a 9mm to make it more believable so nobody asks questions? Anyways, I just think this is another example of, first off, you're not going to believe anything the government says, but then as soon as the government says it's fragmented, all of a sudden you do believe it. But if the government has such power to just manufacture everything, why don't they just manufacture this into, oh yeah, we found a 30-06 and it matches? Doesn't make sense to me, guys. And guys, I don't believe the whole entire narrative either. Okay, I'm not saying this is the whole thing that telling us the whole truth. I think that there is a conspiracy, and if you watch my whole entire video, you'll see that my theory is that there's a lot of more people who were in on this, that were aware of it, that maybe helped plan it. I'm not sure. But there's a lot of evidence that a lot of people knew about this happening, and no one's looking into that. Not one person, not Candace Owens, not the government, not the FBI, not independent investigators. I don't know why no one's looking into the people who I think knew about this and possibly helped plan or carry it out. And I think that's where the real conspiracy lands. Not with all this stuff about, Erica Kirk's great-great-grandma and her great-great-grandpa and test tubes and time travel and just a bunch of stuff that I don't think is really relevant. But there is some conspiracy going on, and that's what my huge video is all about, trying to get people to look into. We see this a lot. For example, with different creators, like Nate from Valhalla at VFT was one of these heroes from this side, and then he slightly questioned. This is funny because these are the people who say ask questions. He slightly questioned something, and he actually proved part of their narrative wrong that they were pushing about the whole Fort Huachuca thing, and he kind of put out a video talking about the reliability of the person who was the witness about all this stuff. And the very next day, every single person on this other side was just slamming him. Oh my gosh, he's a Fed slopper now. He's turned on us, blah, 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 blah. When in fact, he was just asking a question, an actual good question, found things that were not true, and presented it. And just because this side didn't want to hear it, they were just like, oh, no, he's a Fed now. Like, really? Like, this guy was your hero, and the next day you're just going to turn on him and act like he's some kind of loser or something? I don't know. I felt really bad for Nick, because I actually think he's a decent guy, and I think he's doing his best. I don't agree with a lot of the stuff he says, but like, come on, he's the one person on this side that I might not agree with who's actually trying to actually question things and come to a decent conclusion, and not just seeing headlines everywhere and going, I believe that, 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 without even doing any kind of questioning. Okay, and that's where we come back to questioning things versus just disregarding things. Okay, if you're asking questions, if the question you ask is proven wrong, you shouldn't just plug your ears and be like, I'm going to forget I ever asked that question and move on to the next thing. Right? If you're going to question, does 2 + 2 = 4? And you go, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that's 2 + 2. That equals 4. Okay. If someone's telling you that that's what the government says, so therefore 2 + 2 = 5, but then you count 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, 2 + 2 = 4. That doesn't equal 5. Well, the government's right. The 2 + 2 = 4. You better, you ask the question, you have your answer. You better go, okay, well, it equals 4. I was wrong. Not 2 + 2 = 4, not 5, not 6, not 10. I'm just going to keep thinking that 2 + 2 = 10 because the government said it was, 2 + 2 = 4. And if you say 2 + 2 = 4, you're just a Fed slopper. Like, that's exactly what the people who did with the moose on my video did. Like, right? Like, and I see this happening a ton, and that's why I made this video, guys. Is if you're going to say you're asking questions, if you ask a question and that question is proven one way or the other, you got to stick with the truth. Not what you think is true, not what you want to be true, if that makes sense. The one last thing I want to get to is the types of conspiracy theories and the types of conspiracy theorists, mostly actually. Because in my mind, there's 3 different types of conspiracy theorists, right? Okay, and I think you better be a conspiracy theorist or you're I think you're stupid, right? Like, what did Elon Musk say? Like like last year, like every single conspiracy theorist has pretty much come out true at this point, and there's not really any more conspiracy theories left, right? And the whole point is there's three different types in my opinion. There might be more types, but I think in general there's three different types. Okay, there's the smart one. Okay, and the smart conspiracy theorist is actually looking for evidence that proves their conspiracy correct. Not some coincidence, not something that somebody says that randomly makes a conspiracy up. That, like actual conspiracies that have actual evidence that are actual meaningful to that conspiracy, right? Meaning, for example, let's give an example. Let's say the moon landing, okay? Moon landing has so many things wrong with it. For me, the biggest proof is that it takes a certain amount of seconds for radio signals to get to the moon and back. And there's evidence that shows they're talking from the Earth to the moon. And there's several times where I think it's like 6 seconds. Okay, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, right? But let's just pretend it's 6 seconds. It might be 6.5, it might be 10, it might be 4. Let's just pretend it's 6, okay? So if the person on the ground says, hey, Neil Armstrong on the moon, what does it look like up there? Click. And then it gets sent 6 seconds to the moon. Neil receives it. Neil thinks about his answer for half a second and goes, it's really gray up here. Okay, now it sends back down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It should take 12 seconds for the person on Earth to receive the signal. Okay? Okay, 6 to go up, however long it takes to respond, and then come back to about at least 12 minimum. Okay, if you responded exactly at the 12-second mark, 6-second mark, okay? And it comes back down. Well, there's times in this transmission where the person on Earth asks a question, hey, Neil, what about this? And it goes up, and it comes back in 4 seconds. 2 seconds there and 2 seconds back. It's not possible. That's not possible. It's literally not possible unless there's just a guy across the room responding back, right? Like I forgot to wait the 12 seconds. That's scientifically not possible. So that's evidence that one of the pieces, there's all kinds of other evidence that, like the wind on the moon, the lighting, the reflections, like the footprints, there's all kinds of stuff. We don't have to get into all that, but there's all kinds of actual evidence. Okay. That's evidence. What isn't evidence is they go and they look into Neil Armstrong's grandma and his grandma didn't believe in the moon, and then she married a guy that worked for NASA, and then NASA and their child worked for the NSA, and then she was in some kind of a film for NSA talking about Mars. Therefore, the moon landing didn't happen. Do you see the difference? Or they prove that Neil Armstrong had 2 wives instead of 1 and lied about it. Like, that's not evidence that the moon landing didn't happen. So there's that type of conspiracy theories, okay? The ones that actually look at actual true evidence and the evidence that actually happens, okay? Not hearsay. And we go a lot about this in my videos. So if you want to know more about hearsay and evidence versus motive, because motive is not evidence, guys. That's what's a huge differentiator here, is a lot of people are using motive as evidence. And that we're going to be going into that a lot of my videos. We're not going to cover it here. But guys, the smart conspiracy theorists are actually about evidence, okay? There's 2 other kinds of conspiracy theorists, okay? There's the if then this conspiracy theorists. And these are the ones that use past things to prove future things, okay? And the reason why these ones are so dangerous is because it can also be used the opposite way around, okay? For example, let's go back to Bigfoot, okay? There's a new documentary coming out, and apparently they found some footage in some... I haven't seen the documentary, so I can't really cover it super well. But apparently they found some extra footage that clarifies a lot of the Patterson-Gimlin footage, and apparently the guy that wore the suit is also in this, but apparently that extra footage that has never been seen before pretty much supposedly debunks Patterson-Gimlin, okay? But there's been so many people... When I review these Bigfoot footage, I've reviewed hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of videos of Bigfoot. Everyone's always like, oh, Patterson-Gimlin in that video, and that's real. The Bigfoot walks in a certain way, and they say, well, if the Bigfoot doesn't walk that way, it's not a Bigfoot, because if it didn't walk that way, we know that's how Bigfoot walks, because Patterson-Gimlin walks this way. The Bigfoot in Patterson-Gimlin, right? Which is completely like dumb, right? Because if Bigfoot is like a humanoid creature, go to the mall and just sit on a bench and watch people walk. Does every single person walk the same way? No, everyone walks in a slightly different gait. Their arms swing in a different way. They have a different kind of walk. They bump up and down differently. Some people hunch over when they walk. Some people walk up straight. So, if you were to go to someplace and see a person walking like this, you can't just be like, oh, well, no, people walk up straight. That's not a human. That's an alien or something. That's right. That's just dumb. The point that I'm making is people have used for like the last 50, 60 years Patterson-Gimlin as like a litmus test about Bigfoot, that if the Bigfoot does not walk the same exact way, it's not possibly a Bigfoot. And if it walks exactly the same way, it's for sure a Bigfoot. Okay, so if you're a hoaxer and you want your Bigfoot to be believed, you're going to study the Patterson-Gimlin video and you're going to go try to walk just like the Bigfoot in the Patterson-Gimlin video as much as possible to try to trick people. And if you do it good enough, they automatically believe you because that's how Bigfoot walked in the Patterson-Gimlin footage. Therefore, it's true. The problem is, I don't know if this documentary definitively proves Patterson-Gimlin false or not. Okay, I don't know if it does, but let's just say that it does prove it false. That means that every single footage that's ever been reviewed in the last 50 years where they've used this walk as a litmus test, now all those can be proven false. It walks like Patterson-Gimlin. Patterson-Gimlin was false, therefore that one's false. Does that make sense? So that's where we get to this whole entire situation where if you're going to say, well, if JFK was a conspiracy, therefore Charlie Kirk is a conspiracy, or the moon landing was fake, therefore 9/11 was false. Okay, and 9/11 I think was this is very questionable, right? Like there's all kinds of things that are questionable, but you can't say just because JFK was taken out by the CIA or whatever you believe, that means that 9/11 was also an inside job. That's not why. Like this does not prove this. And every time I bring this up to people are like, well, they lied about JFK, therefore they're lying about this. Well, it's like, not necessarily. Like they might have lied about JFK, but when your house burns down and they show up and the government saves your house and puts it out with a water hose, that doesn't mean that your house was holographically on fire and then they came in, they sprayed some holographic water all over it and your house wasn't really on fire. The government can be true and correct sometimes and lie sometimes. It doesn't mean that every single thing is a government conspiracy. Right? So the if then this is dangerous for two reasons. First of all, there's no evidence from this that proves this. And second of all, if you can prove that this didn't happen, then also that takes away your whole argument about this. Right? You can't, for example, let's just say that they prove that Lee Harvey Oswald really did take out JFK. That doesn't prove that 9/11 wasn't an inside job. But people are going to say, well, if you're going to use that, if this, then that, you have to say, well, this was proven correct, therefore this is also correct. Or the moon landing was proven true, therefore JFK was really not a conspiracy. Okay. The third type of conspiracy theorist that I think is out there, and I think this is what's kind of taken over. I think previously the majority of conspiracy theorists have been if this then that. And there's like a small section of actually smart conspiracy theorists that haven't been taken over. A lot of conspiracies are put out there by the government in order to trick you and make you look crazy. Okay, guys. I think flat Earth is one of those. Because the only evidence behind flat Earth is that you have to think that everything is fake in order to think that. And it's the guy who actually started flat Earth worked for the CIA and a lot of mind control programs. And yet we're going to start believing that, flat Earth is true. Like when this guy is the one that actually started it, not his grandma being something and then something and something. This guy is actually CIA brainwashing master, starts the flat Earth movement, and we're supposed to believe that it's an actual organic conspiracy. Not just, I think that one was put out there to make people look crazy, smart people look crazy, and it worked a lot for a lot of people, right? The third type, though, that's growing huge and faster than others is what I would like to call the reality show conspiracy theorist. Okay, and what is the reality TV conspiracy theorist? This is a person who picks a certain person and everything that they say is correct, and they're not going to ask any questions about it. They just hear what this person says and they just go yes, 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 and it doesn't matter what the truth is. It doesn't matter if someone else puts perfect evidence that whatever this person says is not true out there. That's their reality star. Okay. The reason I call it this, let me just explain to you and ask you a question. Have you ever watched a show like Dancing with the Stars or American Idol or America's Got Talent? Any of these kinds of shows. Okay, what are they? Let's just use American Idol, for example, okay? They get up there, and there's like 10 different contestants, and they're all singing, and this is one of the things I hate about these kinds of shows is I think that they should all be behind a screen with nobody knowing who they are. No one should know their name. No one should know what they look like. No one should know what they like, what hobbies they like, whatever, or anything, what kind of a person they are. And then they should just sing. That would be so much better and so much more accurate if it's an actual singing competition, okay? If it's an actual singing competition. And this is where it goes to the comparison for the conspiracy theorists. The conspiracy theories that are on these are not in the search for the truth. They're in the search for the same thing, okay? And let me explain that. There's like 10 different contestants, and before they go sing, it shows a whole entire montage of their childhood and how hard it was and how they lost their mom when they were 5, and then their dad went to jail when they were 10, and then they've had to struggle for 10 years, and now they're 20 years old, and they finally get to live their dream as a singer. And then it goes to the next person, and that person is I don't know, from an immigrant family and has this really hard upbringing, and it was hard to come here to this country, and then it was hard to get out of poverty, and then it goes to the next person, and that person tells their whole entire story about how they lost their left arm in a shark attack. And pretty soon the whole entire show isn't necessarily about who's the best singer. You know, and then it shows the next person, and they're a great skateboarder, and then that led them to wanting to sing for some reason, and then whatever, right? So you have people that are like, oh, I've been bit by a shark before. I love the ocean. I'm always scared of sharks. I'm going to vote for the shark bite lady. And then you have people who are immigrants as well. And they're like, I love the immigrant. They have a really great story. I really identify with that. And then they have people who identify with the first story. And then you have a bunch of skateboarders that are like, I want the skateboarder dude to win. And they get up there and they sing and they do their thing. And some of them may be great at singing. But at the end of the day, they say, hey, call this number and vote for who you want to win. And guess what? Nobody calls and votes for whoever sang the best. Everyone's calling in and they're voting for the guy that skateboards, and they're voting for the lady who lost an arm, and they're voting for whoever. The ones that are really sentimental are voting for whoever had the saddest story. And no matter how good the other people are, let's just say 1 through 9 have a really great sob story. Number 10 has no sob story. They're just a normal, average person. I mean, most people have some kind of sob story, but let's just say that the number 10 has had they're rich, they're already well off, they have no sob story. Everyone thinks that they're kind of like, okay, well, I want to vote for the underdog, right? But let's just say that this person has the best singing voice. They're the actual best singer. They cover all the notes the best. They sing the best. They don't forget the lyrics the best. They perform the best. They even play the guitar. They play the piano. They play the banjo. They play every single kind of instrument. They can sing the best. Their voice is the best. They have the best vocal range. They actually sing the best. In this show, you're supposed to call up and vote for whoever sang the best. That guy who sings the best is never going to win American Idol, right? We already all know that. Like, if you've ever watched American Idol, I don't watch it anymore, but growing up, my family did like that show. If you watch the show, the person who actually sings the best literally never wins. It's always whoever has the best sob story, whoever has the best connection with the fans in some way. And the person who sings the best, if they don't have the best sob, I mean, it's possible whoever sings the best also wins, if they have the best sob story as well. But what I'm trying to say is, this is what these conspiracy theorists are. Okay, they're not looking for the truth. What is the best truth? What has the most amount of authenticity? What has the most truth to it? A lot of them are looking for the most exciting thing, the person who's coming out with the craziest theory that's the most exciting at the time. And we see this with how many theories come out. One day it's the one theory, one day it's the next theory, one day it's the next theory, one day it's the next theory. And the problem I have is, the theory that got brought up 10 days ago is now just buried under something. And it's like, okay, well, why aren't we ever going to revisit that? Was that not true? Well, it probably wasn't true. Maybe it was true, but it's not exciting anymore. So now they have to go to this one and this one and this one. If you just focused on this for 5 months straight, no one's going to watch it anymore, even if it's the truth. And that's the sad reality. And if we're looking for the actual truth, no matter how many views it gets and how many people tune in, that's what should be focused on. And it's really sad, because are we overlooking the truth just for the sake of views? Okay, I don't know. I can't say that for sure, but my questioning would be, I'm just asking questions, right? Like, why do we move on from each of these theories so quickly instead of actually proving them true or proving them wrong? Okay. My experiments that I do prove a lot of stuff wrong. Okay. Especially the microphone theory. That one is one of the easiest ones to just automatically just to debunk. People are going to point and they're just going to say, well, you're just a Fed supporter, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, no, I asked the questions. I went out there and I did the experiments. Okay. If I was a Fed stopper, I would have just been like, yes, government, I believe you. Right? I actually went out there and nobody's hardly been doing that. Okay? Nobody's hardly been doing that. Like, where are the people that are doing that? We don't do ourselves any favors. I think we should look at one theory, find out if it's true or not, and then move on to the next one after we've proven this one true or not. If it's true, fine. Okay, we say, hey, this is true. Log that away as a true one. Put it in like the notebook or the file of true theories. That way we can piece it all together in the end. But if it's not true, move on. Admit that it's not true, and then move on to the next one. Because now we have like 100 different theories, and it's like just overwhelming. And I think that's why so many people are so overwhelmed. They cannot believe anything can be true. There's just so many things out there, and maybe that's done on purpose. And by who, I don't know. Right? Is there some big organization or foreign people behind all of these things coming out there trying to mess up with everything that we're trying to do and to divide us and everything? I don't know. Anyways, guys, I think it's important. Definitely question things, okay? But when I say question things, I'm not saying it like some people are, or I'm saying disregard everything. That's not what I'm saying. And when you say question things, you shouldn't be saying disregard the government said it, disregard it. No, the government said it, question it. Find out if each of these things that they're saying is true or false. To say this to throw it out, that does you a disservice. What if it's true, right? Like what the fire example. What if they say your house is on fire and you're like, no, the government said the house is on fire. I'm just going to go to sleep right now just because the government said it can't be true. And then you maybe it's not true, but what if it is? You're just going to burn your house because you just want to question things. That's not questioning things, guys. That's just being stupid, right? Questioning things is when you actually question it, ask the right questions, okay? And by asking the right questions, I mean asking the actual right questions, okay? For example, was it a 30-06? Could it be? Are there other times where someone got hit by a 30-06? Is this possible? Not. They said it was a 30-06, therefore we're going to say it's definitely not a 30-06, and it has to be an alien from the top of Mount Timpanogos, or it has to be a palm gun, or it has to be a microphone. That's not asking questions. That's just coming up with random theories. Okay? Asking questions about each individual thing. Okay? For example, when I heard about the mic theory, I asked, could it be a mic? Could it, do the amounts of energy match that could be there? I went out and I did experiments about that, and I found out that it's completely implausible and almost impossible. Okay? I didn't go, oh, this guy's saying it's an exploding mic. Let me see if his grandma is really his real grandma, and did they move here in the time that they said that they moved here, and has their address always been right? And I need to go check their birth certificate to make sure that they're not half German and half English like they say they are. And I said, no, they're talking about it on a microphone. I went and tested the microphone and asked questions about the microphone. I didn't go on some weird, bizarre, crazy thing that had nothing to do with the microphone. If this makes sense, guys. Anyway, guys, be a smart conspiracy theorist. Ask questions. Ask the right questions. Look for the truth, not what you think is true. And if what you think is true is wrong, admit that, move on. I do that a bunch of times in my experiments, in my video. Go look at that, guys. I'm going to put the links in the top here somewhere. Be a smart conspiracy theorist, not a if this, then that one, or a reality TV show conspiracy theorist where you're just going to believe and vote for your conspiracy no matter what, even if there's a better one that's actually more true as far as what I mean by being there's a better one. And guys, don't be like the people who went on my channel and saw the Bigfoot, and then I showed that it was actually a moose, and then still think it's a Bigfoot. Don't be like that, guys. Be smart, be intelligent. We're better than this. Let's all come together. Let's work on this, figure out what the actual truth is, even if it's not exciting and even if it's not super epic. Let's go.